Yesterday, I endorsed Zohran Mamdani. I've made it very clear that we have differences, but I also believe that he brings a sense of optimism and the can-do spirit, a positivity that I believe our city needs at this time.
Welcome to Off Topic on Politics. I'm New York One reporter Bobby Cuza. Everybody stop and mark your calendars. On Monday, September 29th, we are taping a special live crossover episode of Off Topic on Politics and the You Decide with Errol Lewis podcast right here in Chelsea. I will be there along with Errol and my colleague Courtney Gross, who is the usual host of Off Topic on Politics, and some special guests. It is happening at Racket NYC. That's at 431 West 16th Street. The doors open at 5:30 p.m. And it is free to attend, but you do need to RSVP. It'll be a great way to kick off the final month of the mayor's race. Head to ny1.com or the Spectrum News app for more information and to RSVP, and we hope to see you there. So, Zohran Mamdani this week scored perhaps his most notable endorsement yet, that of Governor Kathy Hochul, who had been on the fence the past several months over whether to fully embrace the Democratic Socialist. We'll talk about what it means for Mamdani, who leads the race by 21 points over his nearest rival, Andrew Cuomo, according to the latest poll. And one of the city's most iconic tourist attractions is now under threat from Mayor Eric Adams, who suddenly wants to ban horse carriage rides in Central Park, something his predecessor, Bill de Blasio, promised and then failed to do. And joining me for the conversation is our own Kelly Mena, who is going to explain what is happening and why Mayor Adams suddenly decided to take up this issue. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Bobby. I'm on the horse beat for a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I was going to say something about reining in the horse carriage industry. There's a lot of puns we could go with here.
We know you like that. Your dad.
My dad jokes?
Yeah.
Ayana Harry is here as well. Ayana typically covers the Andrew Cuomo campaign.
Yes.
Which we will talk about. But I want to start with Governor Kathy Hochul and her endorsement this week of Zohran Mamdani. So I don't think this came as a huge surprise. I think Kathy Hochul had kind of been inching in this direction over the past several months. She'd been saying nice things about Zohran Mamdani. And she also, she kind of hinted at it. But she also has made clear that she and Zohran Mamdani do not see eye to eye on everything, right? And even in this New York Times op-ed that she wrote and that posted, I think, on Sunday night or Monday morning, where she explained her endorsement of Mamdani, she said like 3 or 4 different ways in this piece why she doesn't disagree, or the fact that she doesn't disagree with Mamdani. She doesn't agree with Mamdani on everything, right? She thinks that they are aligned on affordability. She talked about the childcare, universal childcare issue, and the fact that he will stand up to Donald Trump. But she is still trying to maintain a little bit of distance. So, Ayana, what do you think? What was your reaction to the endorsement?
It seemed like she's trying to have her cake and eat it too a bit, and that she wants the political benefit of endorsing the wildly popular Democratic nominee in the race for New York City mayor, but she also doesn't want to be tied to his position on different stances. So it's kind of like, I like the guy, maybe not all that he stands for, but the guy himself, yeah, he's great. Affordability, that's great. I will say this. I don't know, particularly because it took so long, how politically significant her endorsement really is. How many New York City voters are sitting at home saying, okay, Kathy Hochul endorsed him, now I'm on board? I don't know. Maybe there are a few, but I don't imagine that there were, a great many people waiting to decide on who they voted for, until Kathy Hochul weighed into the race. So it is significant, though, in a practical level, in that if Mamdani does become mayor, he's going to have to work with the governor. He's also going to have to work with the Assembly Speaker very, very closely in order to advocate for New York City's priorities up in Albany. So,
who also endorsed Mandani this week. We'll talk about that as well, Carl Heastie, the Assembly Speaker. But you said he's wildly popular. Mamdani's wildly popular. He's wildly popular maybe in New York City, but not statewide. So that's going to be interesting how it plays into her reelection campaign next year. But
that's what I was going to say. That to Ayana's point, he's wildly popular here, and it's interesting. I think the governor. I'm so used to saying that word. The governor is making a politically calculated move. Right? She's up for reelection next year. We kind of already know who her number one rival is going to be, and she doesn't want to lose any votes right now, right out of the starting gate. Those in suburban counties that maybe aren't so crazy about Zohran Mamdani, she has the rest of the state to appeal to. And I think she's thinking about that specifically. The areas where she didn't agree with Mamdani, I think are maybe issues that are not necessarily, or issues that are popular in other counties, and that she wants to make sure she's not ostracizing those voters and those people that might come into her camp. Affordability is really big in New York City, obviously, but not across the entire state. That's not necessarily the way it goes. So she has to make sure that she's keeping herself appealing to everybody, because it's going to be competitive for her. And I think her coming in saying she supports Mamdani, to Ayana's point too, it's not necessarily, I don't necessarily think she's bringing in a whole bunch of votes, but maybe she's looking to bring in some people into her own camp, right? Because she also needs help possibly going into this next reelection. Maybe she can bring some progressive people that might feel like she was too to the center, and that might be the calculus that she has in there. It's also interesting because will this make other Democrats in New York State come in and officially endorse Mamdani? We know one person that isn't going to endorse him is Tom Suozzi, the congressman.
Yeah.
But, what does this mean for Hakeem Jeffries? What does this mean for Schumer? They have also a political calculus for them. They have to protect Democrats across the country as well. So unclear if that will happen, but I think it was something that the governor was hoping maybe would be, I think, for her better than necessarily Mamdani.
I agree. I think in some ways Kathy Hochul almost benefits from this Zohran
More
Mamdani.
than Mamdani
Yes,
does.
yeah.
And on the point that you brought up about Hakeem Jeffries, it's interesting. I feel like he has more to lose by not endorsing Mamdani than Kathy Hochul does. So, his district is fully in New York City. His district is filled literally with Mamdani supporters.
Meaning he could lose his job.
Yeah,
right? He could get primaried by
that's
somebody
the talk.
on the left.
In
right?
Central Brooklyn, there is a lot of talk, and there are people who are weighing runs to challenge him, in part because they know that his support within the district they feel is waning. So it's interesting that Kathy Hochul is the one who endorsed Zohran Mamdani, when it seems at least locally Hakeem Jeffries has more to lose, although he's also, of course, thinking about his national prospects and, helping Democrats all across the country in the House.
Yeah, I wonder if for Mamdani, like you said, I don't think he needs Kathy Hochul in order to win, right? He's got plenty of support as it is. We saw that in the poll that came out this week. But I do wonder if Kathy Hochul and then Carl Heastie and some of these other Democrats, it was reported this week that Yvette Clarke, the Brooklyn congresswoman, is also going to endorse him. I feel like these people kind of falling in line and backing him, it kind of sends a signal that he's not as scary as maybe he's been made out to be by some people on the right, and even by Andrew Cuomo, right, who make him sound like he's this radical leftist, and he's going to open up the jails, and he's going to disband the NYPD, and it's going to be like an open-air brothel in New York City. But when you have Kathy Hochul and all these like mainstream, more centrist Democrats endorsing him, it's like, all right, this guy's maybe more palatable.
A safe bet.
Yes, but I also think it works for them, because I think they were running the risk of looking incredibly out of touch with where Democrats in New York City are right now. Zohran Mamdani, he's getting really close to 50% support, and you're still wavering on whether or not, clearly the people of New York, the Democrats, look at the primary night results. Clearly the Democrats in New York City are behind Zohran Mamdani. You're a leader of Democrats, but you're not seeing what the people are seeing. I think it kind of it made some of them seem out of touch and as part of a generation in the Democratic Party that may feel more and more outdated to voters.
I completely agree with that. I think the first thing is you got to protect yourself at home, right? So you don't want to, necessarily go with everybody else if that's going to put you in a vulnerable position or maybe create a threat for you here in New York City, because at the end of the day, all politics is local. And if you're not paying attention to that, that can be a serious challenge for you if you're going to look for a reelection or stay in office.
Kathy Hochul, by the way, there was a poll out earlier this week, a Siena poll that had her up 25 points on Elise Stefanik. Stefanik is the upstate Republican congresswoman who may or will probably, I guess we could say, be her opponent in the governor's race next year. But, you know, she is walking this fine line, right? I mean, it behooves her to kind of hitch her wagon to Mamdani because she could pick up votes here in the city, right? And you want to run up the score in New York City when you're running statewide as a Democrat. But you're also handing Elise Stefanik this cudgel to beat you with, right? And we saw that this week. Stefanik is like bludgeoning Kathy Hochul because of the Mamdani thing and trying to, you know, now paint her as an extremist because she's tied herself to Mamdani. So it kind of cuts both ways.
I just to point out, I think that Elise Stefanik was going to do that either way, right? Because you're in the same political party. You know, you can't separate those two. You're both Democrats. So naturally, they're going to pin you together. I don't think she necessarily needed her to endorse Mamdani for her to be like, oh, look at this is a person in your party. And we know that the mayor and the governor have to work together. So if anything, it was just another opportunity for her to seize on.
And I will say this, you know, speaking of people being in the same party and pinning them together, Elise Stefanik is not only in the same party as President Donald Trump, she has been a very fierce defender of President Donald Trump. And I think that that's going to hurt her tremendously next year, particularly as New Yorkers begin to feel the real impact of all of the federal budget cuts and the big, beautiful bill. Like Elise Stefanik, like that's your boy. How do you continue to justify this scaling down of the federal government that is, you know, making it harder for people to go to the doctor, making it hard for people to put food on the table? Like, I think she's going to have a very difficult time being such a Trump loyalist. And so I would not be surprised if Hochul runs up the numbers even more.
Yeah. And Hochul up 25 points on Stefanik in that Siena poll. And also her favorability numbers are sort of inching up. I mean, she had been kind of scraping the bottom, rock bottom in the polls the past year or so, but it seems to be trending in the right direction. Anyway, so let's go back to Carl Heastie, the state assembly speaker who endorsed Mamdani on Wednesday. I mean, now you've got the three leaders in Albany, right? Kathy Hochul, the assembly speaker, Carl Heastie, and then the state Senate majority leader, Andrea Stewart-Cousins, have all endorsed Mamdani. So, you know, you might think, well, this is a good sign, right? These are the people who control everything that happens in Albany, and he has to get all this stuff passed, right? The tax hikes and the free buses and the universal child care. So looking good, right? He's going to get all this stuff passed, but it's not quite that simple.
Carl Heastie, I will say this, Carl Heastie is essentially his boss in Albany. So I do think that it is a positive nod when you get that good job report, when the boss signs off, it's like, oh, okay, this is the guy who, you know, was over his house in the legislature and he's giving him the nod.
One of the things that's been great about Zohran's campaign is he has a romantic view of what the city can be and should be. And, you know, sometimes people want to be romanced.
I feel like that counts for a little bit, but I didn't mean to. I feel like you had something about to say,
No, that's
Kelly.
exactly what I was going to say is it's good that he has that because obviously we know that the budget for the city depends so much on the state, so it's important to get support there. It's also interesting because right after Mamdani won the primary, Carl Heastie had some good words, said very nice things about Mamdani that almost made it seem as if he was already supporting him after that win, that surprising and big win in the primary. So I don't think this was a surprise for anybody. I also think it's just one more, I guess, loss for Mayor Adams because these Democratic institutions, you know, are not going with him. He's the incumbent mayor.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. Now he has three. He's got the Bronx. He's got Brooklyn, and I believe he has one other county. I'm not thinking of it right now. So it's just
Manhattan Democrats.
Manhattan, yeah. So that just adds to the momentum. To your point about bringing in all this established Democrats to come in and support the mayor of the city. The last thing you need as a Democratic Party that maybe it has some challenges is any fractures in it. You know, you want to show a united front as a Democratic Party, especially when it's back-to-back years of re-election. You got the governor, you have the mayor, so you want that support going into any type of re-election campaign.
And this is a little random, but in starting to read Kamala Harris's book and just like looking at all the division amongst national Democrats and how that all ended and like how did that work out for y'all? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you would think New York leaders would sit and watch and learn a lesson from that and say, okay, We need to be united, and we also need to be in tune with what voters really, truly care about. I know you're going to get to it later, but that Marist poll found 88% of city voters say the city is not affordable. Like 88%. That's almost 9 out of 10 people. Zohran Mamdani's talking to that, and he's talking to issues that people really care about. And when you're not backing him, I think to some voters it feels like, well, you don't get what's going on in my life, and you're not talking about what impacts me on a daily basis. And I do think it starts to raise questions as to, well, why are you there anyway? And why can't we try something new? Why can't we do something different?
Just really quick to add to Ayana's point, if you look at the polls, the issues that are up there, some of the ones that these Democrats are saying they don't agree with Zohran on are not even in the top 5, are not cracking the top 5 or even the top 3. So that makes, to Ayana's point, how can I trust you to be, to advocate for me on any type of level, whether it's local, state, or federal, when my top issue is not even in alignment with your top issues? That shouldn't be a reason why you're not coming to the table. That should be.
Sorry, I don't want to stop Bobby, but also on the issue of Israel-Palestine, we are seeing that more New York City voters are now sympathetic to the Palestinian cause and the Israeli cause. So it's like, they're being critical of Mamdani on his stance. And again, are you out of touch with how New Yorkers are feeling right now?
Well, let's use that as a segue to talk about Andrew Cuomo. Andrew Cuomo this week, a lot of people were parsing this interview that he gave to the New York Times. The Times did a story saying he had sort of shifted his stance on Israel.
Yeah.
He says that's not the case, but he does seem to all of a sudden be a little bit more critical, right, of the
Israeli military
Israeli
strategy
in Gaza.
Yeah, and so it's trying to, I think you described it accurately. So what Andrew Cuomo did say that's new is he called the situation in Gaza horrific. He said the conflict should come to an end, and in fact, he felt it should have ended months ago. So that's significant and new and different, I believe, for Andrew Cuomo. But then he goes on to say that's not a period, that's a comma in the sentence. He's still 100% a supporter of Israel. And he's, trying to have it both ways, it seems a bit, and that he wants to condemn the conflict, but he doesn't seem willing to be critical of the government and the military strategy that, or I shouldn't say military strategy, but of the government that has deployed this military strategy that's leading in part to those conditions.
The situation is horrific. The carnage is horrific. I pray for peace. I pray for an end to the violence. I pray for the hostages to be returned, and Hamas has to be eliminated.
And he has tied himself to Netanyahu to some degree, right? I mean, there's this talk of him joining the legal team, Netanyahu's legal team fighting against the ICC, the International Criminal Court. And then there was this whole other issue where Mamdani said he wants to have Netanyahu arrested when he steps foot in New York City. And then Cuomo kind of ridiculed that and said, the ICC has no jurisdiction here in New York City. And if
Mamdani, he were to arrest Netanyahu, it's Mamdani who should in fact be arrested. And so that, of course, was a big old New York Post headline this week. But yeah, it seems like Andrew Cuomo is trying to be true to his, roots, his decades and decades of vocal support to Israel, while also understanding that New Yorkers are exasperated, many of them, with the situation in Gaza. And he's trying to find the right balance, and it's difficult. Like, this is such a difficult topic. It, isn't just something that New Yorkers read about in the headlines. So many New Yorkers have family abroad, have family in the Middle East. And so, it's difficult for Andrew Cuomo to stay true to what he said in the past, but keep up with how people are feeling today. And so it's a little jumbled.
But like you said, that poll last week showed, people say they like Mamdani's handling of the Israel-Palestine issue much better than Andrew Cuomo. So I think he's probably paying attention to the polls. Before we move on, Kelly, I got to ask you about Mayor Adams, who you spend most of your days with.
I do.
And he has been, he's been all over the place the past week or so, holding campaign events, not just, out doing the usual announcements and press conferences and ribbon cuttings.
Yeah.
He was really
campaigning. Yeah, he's finally, I guess, on the move, on the trail. It felt like he was a turtle before, but he's moving now.
While he remains in the single digits in the polls.
Yes. But he's ignoring the polls. He's only listening to his people. But yeah, he's in the single digits.
Except for his own internal poll.
Exactly. I will say one of them, he cracked to 2 digits and it was 11%, but the rest of them were all single digits. But I will say that, yes, about half of his day now is all campaign events. Yesterday he was in Harlem. Earlier this week he was in Brooklyn. Today he's in Queens. He's really making these stops, going out of his way, making sure he's talking to New Yorkers. Obviously, I think that is strategic, right? He doesn't have any establishment, no institutions, not necessarily business leaders are on his side. So he has to go about it a different way. He actually has to build that grassroots support because at the end of the day, it's voters who decide and they're the ones that have the final say on whether he gets a second term. And he's not been doing very well in all the other areas, right? He's still struggling with the campaign finance board, who hasn't released multi-millions of dollars. I think it's over $4 million now in matching funds that he thinks he deserves. And that's created a kind of an issue for him, an obstacle. He doesn't have he doesn't have any elected officials or officials that are in office right now that have supported him. And all the other people that supported him 4 years ago defected to other camps. So this is really his only way if he's going to get there. He's more accessible. He's been a little bit, now attacking, I feel like, Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee, talking really these attacks about that he's here to destroy the city, but yes, that's the word, aggressive. That he's
Mamdani
out to destroy the families here in the city, traditional families, communities, especially Black and brown communities, which I find interesting because we know that Zohran Mamdani himself is a part of that community and he's never said those words. But I think that's the messaging the mayor wants to get out there because he obviously is looking for those same voters that are in the same communities and wants to be able to appeal to votes. It's also interesting because of one of the polls that came out this week, I believe it was Marist, actually had Mamdani doing the best with Black voters.
Yeah, Marist, he's made significant
gains there.
Yes.
And remember, that's the mayor's base.
Yeah.
Well, if you
and
think
Andrew
about
Cuomo's
it. Andrew Cuomo's. But if you think of anybody, the mayor talks about how he appeals to Black voters the most. So it's interesting that Mamdani's now edging him out there. And I think that the mayor's also looking at those polls and thinking, well, what can I do? How do I get my messaging stronger?
I think maybe we should say was the mayor's base.
Was, yeah.
It doesn't seem to be that way anymore. All right, guys, we got to take a break. When we come back, we will talk about the mayor's surprise announcement on Wednesday about the horse carriage industry. So on Wednesday afternoon, we all find out that the mayor wants to ban horse carriages, the horse carriages in Central Park, which came as a surprise to me and I think the rest of us, because I don't remember Mayor Adams ever having talked about the horse carriage industry. Of course, this has been an ongoing controversy. I mean, going back decades, right? This has been a source of controversy because you have animal rights advocates who want to ban the practice. You have the carriage horse drivers who are unionized, who have pushed back. There's very strong feelings on all sides of the issue, but it's been kind of dormant. I shouldn't say dormant, but for the past several years, there has been legislation in the city council, but it's never really gone anywhere. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, 2 months before the election, Mayor Adams wants to ban carriage horses. So, Kelly, what is your informed take on what's going on here?
I think that this is obviously a political ploy, right? I don't know how many votes it's actually going to move, but the mayor has never even mentioned carriage horses. And any event that I've ever gone with him to, I've never heard him mention this as a thing for him. I don't think anybody's even asked him about it. This is not like a Mayor Adams on-brand thing for him. We know crime and safety are his thing, and he's actually playing into that, saying that this is a public safety issue because he brought up
horses can trample people.
Yes, and he brought that up, right? That there was the most recent incident was a horse that got spooked and ran through Central Park and didn't hit anybody, but it could have gone way worse. And that there was kids nearby, and that started him on this idea of let me try to bring everybody to the table and try to get a solution to this issue. And now he's looking to get this done, but we'll see how it even works. You know, the local union that represents the carriage drivers is obviously not very happy about this. It's going to impact over 270 carriage horse drivers and employers. And they also believe that this is a political ploy by the mayor to somehow help his campaign. He's being opportunistic. To your point, Bobby, de Blasio actually campaigned on this and said that this on day one, he would ban carriage horses at Central Park. Yeah. He actually did not do that. And the last 6 weeks of his term, his entire 8 years of being in office, he tried to do it and never went through. This is a very New York City issue, not just for politicians, but for New Yorkers. There's so many New Yorkers that say it's a safety thing. They don't like the carriage horses there. Then there's the animal rights activists, people like the Republican nominee Curtis Sliwa.
Right.
So there's just been, anytime you talk about carriage horses, though it's iconic for everybody outside of the city, this is a very charged issue for many reasons.
And yet it always seems to stall in the city council. And I do
stall.
Yeah,
did not even mean that. But I am curious for both of you, beyond this being a political ploy, which it seems to be, like, there's
How often do we ride?
No. We're real New Yorkers in here.
There's no path. Mayor Adams has no path to actually getting this done, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Well, and that was the weird thing, right? He put out this press release, but he can't actually do anything.
Right.
He's
Right.
calling on the city council, who doesn't
action.
have a good relationship with.
Who you are at war with, yes.
We have to put that in before we get to the other side. Who he doesn't have a good relationship with, and they just overrided some of his vetoes to do this for me. It's like, hey, right. Bobby, I don't get along with you at all most of the time, but can you do me a great favor and help me out with this? And
right.
It's like, it's never going, even if the city council agreed with the mayor on this, they're not going to do it because the mayor asked them to.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of when those polls put out those hypothetical two-way races that are never going to happen because the other, like, we should not talk about those because it's not going to be reality. And, like, maybe we shouldn't even be talking about this because this is just not going to be a reality either.
I don't know. Yeah. No,
Let's
I completely agree. The city council's like not, this bill has not even had a hearing scheduled. That's how not important.
I mean, it does. To be clear, there is some support. I mean, there's actually a fair amount of support in the city council.
There's 21 sponsors, out of 53.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be.
It's not like gonna tomorrow. It's gonna be like put on a schedule. It's gonna be heard, and we're gonna start moving forward.
And the council speaker, on Wednesday, I think, put out a statement saying she said something like, "This is not helpful."
Well, because she's also, in the midst of a political season that we're in, he's in a campaign, basically said this seems politically motivated and this seems like an opportunity for the mayor, and that's not helpful to use these people in this charged issue to help yourself, benefit yourself.
I'd love to know if anyone from the mayor's side of City Hall actually like picked up the phone and had a conversation with anyone in the council about this before putting this out publicly.
I will say that I'm not sure about putting this out publicly, but Bob Holden, who is the sponsor of the bill, said that he was texting back and forth with the mayor himself about this particular issue, and the mayor had been telling him for weeks that he was looking into it but he didn't say that he got a heads up that it was coming on Wednesday officially or anything like that. So that's as far as I got.
Okay, all right.
And you mentioned the Republican candidate, Curtis Sliwa. I mean, he owns the animal rights issues.
Yes, he was in court in Queens
race
yesterday for an animal abuse case, watching an arraignment.
Isn't he?
And is the animal rights? He's on an independent line. I believe it's animal rights.
Protect
animals.
Right, as the line that's going to be on the ballot in addition to the Republican line. So the mayor's kind of stealing his thunder here.
Yes, but Curtis Lee was stealing the mayor's thunder because I have this like circled from the mayor's poll because I think what kind of flew under the radar is the fact that Curtis Lee was at 17%.
Which is not that much off of what Andrew Cuomo is
Exactly.
getting.
I literally circled the two of them together. I'm like, are we all going to be shocked if in the next poll they're like actually tied?
Curtis Sliwa is surging. Oh my gosh.
And when I talk to reporters out in the field, it's actually Curtis Sliwa that's like winning in this entire thing because he's doing so well. That's what's so interesting is everybody talks about this hypothetical situation, Adams dropping out and helping Cuomo, but I actually think if Curtis drops out, Cuomo does better. That's where he really picks up all of these votes.
And he's not.
Oh, no, Curtis.
Do Curtis voters, do they want to support Andrew Cuomo? I don't know where Curtis voters go.
Yeah, I think there might have been some data on that last week, but I don't know. Remember we were talking about Zomentum when Zohran
Yeah.
Mamdani first kind of started
Yes.
surging. So now we got some kind of
The sleeper.
I don't know. I think,
Too difficult. We'll think of it by
I
next week.
loved
we can't rule anybody out.
his idea from this week where he said, not all Gen Z or millennial voters want to vote for Zohran Mamdani, so I'm going to go to the neighborhoods where Mamdani did well, and I'm going to talk to the non-Mamdani young vote. And he's like, I think they're going to be more open to me than Andrew Cuomo and Eric Adams. Like, you know what? You might be right.
Actually, I was with him at a subway stop, I think a week or two ago, and two of the gentlemen that came up to him were young men who loved him.
Yeah.
They were young guys. So I was just like, oh, he has some appeal there.
Don't count them out. Anything can happen in 2 months or however much time
No, we have
left
like
till election.
no,
7
well,
weeks.
if you think about it, October 25th is the start of early voting,
Right.
so it's like really 5.5 is when people first start casting their ballots. So.
All right, guys, that is going to do it for this week's episode. Thank you all for joining us. You can watch us on Inside City Hall weeknights at 7 o'clock. And if you like what you're hearing, or if you don't like what you're hearing, send us some feedback. You can send us an email at yourstoryny1@charter.com. You can also subscribe to Off Topic wherever you get your podcast. And if you like what you're hearing, leave a review. Thanks to our producer, Richie Agostinini. Did I get your name right?
Agostinoni, I gotcha.
Close
I
enough. There's
gotcha.
a lot of vowels. There's a lot of vowels in there. Filling in this week. And thanks for listening, everybody. We will see you next week.